Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg have just scheduled a meeting with the organizers of the boycott. They're planning to meet on Tuesday. This after Facebook has been working all week to impress upon brands the steps they've already taken to crack down on hate speech. Now, the organizers of the Stop Hate for Profit boycott say that more than 500 companies, including Target, Starbucks, and Unilever, have committed to pausing some social media advertising. Now, while Mark Zuckerberg said he takes these matters seriously and they don't benefit from hate speech, he told his employees that it's his guess that these advertisers will be back on the platform soon enough and that, quote, we're not going to change our policies or approach on anything because of a threat to a small percent of our revenue or to any percent of our revenue. Now, Facebook does have a track record, though, of responding to advertiser pressure. It responded to Procter & Gamble's demands to remove violent and offensive content in 2017 and in 2018 to Target's demands that it remove the sale of illegal drugs and to broad demand for independent verification of ad views. Now, as for social stocks overall during the past 5 days of the boycott, Pinterest seeing the biggest benefit, up almost 7%. Snap with the largest decline, down 5%, but still up 42% for the year. And Facebook and Twitter each down about 1%. As Zuckerberg works on drawing advertisers back to the table, he is preparing to be in the hot seat in Washington again. House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler confirming that Zuckerberg, along with Tim Cook from Apple, Sundar Pichai from Google, and Jeff Bezos from Amazon, will appear in an antitrust hearing coming up in late July. Dom, back over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for keeping on top of that whole social media atmosphere for us, Julia. Thank you again. Let's trade it, folks. And BK, I'll start with you on this one here. Does anything that Julia just said make you think differently about Facebook?
No, I don't think it does. I mean, listen, they've got a bigger, probably at this point in time, a bigger PR problem than an earnings problem because the boycott has only hit so much of, was it only, I think, 5 or 10% of their ad revenue. So they are probably not that inclined to change things. What will change things, though, and Zuckerberg's no different than any other CEO, that if their revenue is going to decline by 25, 30%, if Procter & Gamble comes out and says, hey, we're not going to be advertising it there anymore until there are changes, that will change his tune for sure. And then at that point, if the stock sells off, I actually think that's the time you buy it because that's the washout, that's the climax of this whole thing. Things are going to change and the stock goes higher from there.
Karen, I'd like to turn to you for this one here. Is social media still an attractive place to invest? If not Facebook, is there somebody else? What's the good trade there?
I actually think it's Facebook. I also own Google, which is my biggest position. But at Facebook, I think, they've survived these kinds of things before. Cambridge Analytica, they have antitrust heat before what's coming up later in July. But I think this meeting will be really important. I think that they'll say the right things. I think Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg will say the right things. The last time they were sort of in hot water, when Zuckerberg went to the Hill, I think that was the bottom for the stock. And so it wouldn't shock me if this next meeting might put in some sort of a floor for the stock. I think this will blow over. It's just too good of a product for people to walk away permanently.
All right. It seems to kind of be permeating throughout the investor world these days, that thesis that Facebook is a juggernaut here. So let's talk to our next guest here, who says this advertising boycott could last through the presidential election. That's a long way away. Let's bring in Laura Martin, senior media and internet analyst over at Needham. Welcome to the show, Laura. I mean, you heard Julia's report. You heard some of our traders' take on this. Is Facebook still the stock that you want to own in this environment, given the uncertainty in the next several months?
So there's a couple of insights I'd add. Everything that Facebook sells is sold at auction, which means it's based on supply and demand. As you know, a lot of people, consumers, are using Facebook and Instagram because they're locked at home. So their supply of ad units is through the roof. You have 4 million, according to Moody's, 4 million small businesses got aid from the government out of 30 million, and Moody's is now calling for 1 million small businesses never to return. And let's recall that if you're planning on those making up for brands, and now you have brands boycotting. So the notion that small businesses going bankrupt and brands boycotting on the demand side doesn't make for a healthy auction or revenue stream at Facebook.
So Laura, in this case here, the point has been made by some folks out there, investors and other analysts, that it's not some of these big name, multi-billion-dollar brands that are the biggest kind of driver of Facebook and advertising on Instagram. It's some of the smaller businesses that get you to transact on it. So how important are these boycotts in framing the overall aura of the advertising platform to those really big paying small biz customers?
The problem is a lot of those small businesses will not survive. You do not, but you do know for sure that the large brands that are now boycotting Facebook will survive. And one of the things I think we're in a non-consensus view is that some of this is politically motivated. When people talk about labeling or taking hate speech down, they're really talking about Donald Trump's posts. So some of these advertisers actually have political motivations for boycotting, and other ones, really the competitive advantage of Facebook is its mobile advertising. It sort of has a monopoly for mobile ads. Guess what? No one's leaving their house. So right now, I think some of these advertisers, what we're hearing is they were going to pull back on their Facebook advertising anyway, and now they can get social statement cred added to their brand over this issue. But it's not going to have any impact more so, or not much more. They were just going to downdraft the mobile ad units anyway because everyone's at home.
Hey, Laura, it's Tim Seymour. Thanks for joining us, and it's an interesting conversation. So whether one thinks the top line or the advertising revenue falls off appreciably, what do you do to the multiple here? It seems to me ultimately, as with most stocks, it's a function of what multiple you want to pay for them. And Facebook's underperformed the triple Qs or the NASDAQ since Cambridge Analytica, despite the fact it's been at record highs. Can you talk about how you assess a multiple of earnings in the context of not just public unrest, but also DOJ and possibly other regulatory pressure?
So I think there's a really easy way to quantify downside risk here, and that is that there's an entire industry that values consumer-facing brands, and sort of 5 of them value the Facebook consumer-facing brand at 90 to 100 billion, and it's been going down every year since Cambridge Analytica. Brands are about brand trust with consumers, but also with advertisers. So this is now telling you this hate speech boycott is basically another, nail in the coffin of undermining brand trust. So if you want to use that industry's, value of brand equity, destroying us 15% of Facebook's total value that is being destroyed. And it's really harder, it's really expensive to build back brand value. And brand value adds value, but gives you pricing power, it lowers your customer acquisition costs. So I actually think the downside here is significant because it's affecting their brand negatively. The brand trust issue is a problem for Facebook today with both consumers and advertisers.
All right, Laura Martin over at Needham.
Thank you.
Always great to get your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and happy 4th of July.
You too.
All right, Steve Grasso, we're going to turn to you here. Trade it. Bottom line it for us. Facebook, do you buy it or sell it?
I would be a buyer of Facebook. It's up 13%. It's grinded through a lot of headwinds in the past. It continues to grind through this headwind. I believe with the guest that this is 90% politically driven. It's about squashing Donald Trump's voice versus hate speech. I mean, there could be threads of that as well. But the truth is, I think Zuckerberg played this perfectly. He shouldn't be the arbiter of truth, Dom. You have to play it neutral. This is the best I've seen him play this type of event. And I do think that with 2.3 billion users and 7 million advertisers, at a certain point, they're going to have to come back to where the eyeballs are. And I think that this will run its course and work through it. Facebook is still a buy.